This is The Baseline, discussing the hot button topics of the NBA.
Welcome, everybody. You're tuned to The Baseline. Lee Warren Shaw discussing the hot button topics of the NBA. J.R. Smith said Cavs in 7. They played like it was in 7, but the Warriors said we'll be done in 5. And so the 2017 NBA champions for the second time in 3 years are your Golden State Warriors, defeating the Cleveland Cavaliers at the Oracle on the home court, 129-120. It was a jam-packed game. And you know I'm not going to waste any time about breaking it all down. Who's raising the trophy? Who was the MVP? Who may have been the real MVP? We got all of that stuff to get into. So let me go ahead and roll out the red carpet to my right-hand man, 50 grand, NBA aficionado, www.shawsports.net. Big Kahuna, my brother from another mother, Mr. Warren Shaw, repping out of Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Minus the glitz in the matrix, brother. Are you good with the outcome of this year's NBA Finals?
I'm good in terms of, I think, it made us all look right. I mean, it didn't take a genius to understand what this was going to be when KD decided to join the Golden State Warriors.
Do you know how many now so-called NBA insider analysts and sports personalities are going to now emerge from their proclamation that the Golden State Warriors were expected to win this championship? We're going to have a lot of competition before this season ends now because everybody thinks they know something about basketball.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, if you want to try to, pat yourself on the back for something that was pretty obvious, then great. You know what I mean? And I for one, cannot do that. I'm a little bit disappointed to see that, hey, there wasn't as much drama in this NBA Finals as we would have liked. But that said, I do respect Kevin Durant, as a player. He performed at an optimal level the entire playoffs, and really even more so in the NBA Finals, going up against who he's deemed the guy he's been looking at for a long time in LeBron James, taking that battle very personally to go out there and capture the Finals MVP.
Well, I agree with you that the drama was somewhat, taken away because of the outcome. But I think the drama really lied within what you saw on the parquet floor. To me, the shot-making ability and the way that these two teams played each other, you could basically make the argument that the Golden State Warriors raised the level of the Cavaliers game to a point where we may have to, and we're going to wind up doing that. We're going to have to start looking at some of these players. You can make any argument you want. The Golden State Warriors, best team, no question. But it does make you kind of look at this situation and say, with this Cleveland Cavaliers team, had they been at this level from game one, really what would have been the outcome of this series? Would it have been a lot closer? Because minus LeBron James and Kyrie Irving, these guys only showed up at certain points. And we usually, kind of measure that through the course of a regular season and say, hey, the team has to make adjustments. You got to make trades, get better players. But we don't even know whether or not these better players would have stepped up the way guys like J.R. Smith stepped up in this game at a loss. Tristan Thompson setting the tone again at a loss. You know what I mean? It just makes you wonder a little bit. Is it so much that these guys collectively just can't get it together and do it in a series against a caliber like the Golden State Warriors? Or are we really saying that, LeBron James, Kyrie Irving, and then everybody else is just mush?
What you said, I think, really was very poignant to begin that statement in saying that Golden State made Cleveland play a better brand of basketball. And it took them, the first 2 games to really kind of get their crap together to kind of figure out what was going to happen here. And then they played better in game 3, and then obviously they played out of this world in game 4, ultimately falling in game 5. But you do have to credit the Cavaliers for understanding who they were as a team and the contributions and the weight and the players that they could get out there to contribute in a certain manner and fashion. Yeah, they'll have to make some changes if they want to eventually best Golden State, who I'm sure will run it all back and come back and try to do this thing all over again next year, which we'll get to a little bit. But yeah, Cleveland definitely had to raise the bar a little bit, and that's a direct result of the Warriors pressing them and being so damn good themselves.
I mean, Shaw, you look at the stat sheets, and I'm looking at it, and I'm floored because in the moment, I'm just looking at how they were making shots to stay in the game. And even though they couldn't figure out a way to, eventually take out the Golden State Warriors, put the Golden State Warriors in a situation where they have to start rethinking and every shot now becomes, a critical shot that has to be made or a critical turnover that can't be made. J.R. Smith, 25 points. When was the last time we ever mentioned J.R. Smith with 20-something points? What, you go back to last year's finals? You know what I mean? Tristan Thompson, 15 points. Now, look, we're going to go back to this whole Kevin Love thing, blah, 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 blah. But I'm just saying guys like J.R. Smith and Tristan Thompson, who I know if you're talking about making some kind of move, making some kind of play to improve this roster, these easily could be two players that as a part of this starting lineup that could easily be the odd man out moving forward. And I know we're going to talk about that in our go on and get, but I'm just talking about the magnitude of this game and how this team figured out a way to play at a level. They were winning this game, Shaw. They were up by as many as 10 points, 12 points on the Golden State Warriors in the early outset. But that 21-9 run, just absolutely ridiculous. And once the Warriors just started splashing, there was just there was no turning back. It just absolutely was no turning back.
Right. I mean, like I said, we'll get to it when it comes to Cleveland. I think the thing that stands out the most for me is the bench. Then you look at a guy like Andre Iguodala, who's been very good, obviously, defensively the entire series. For the most part, he had some slippage, I think, in Cleveland. But he comes out there, plays great defense tonight, and then also drops 20 points on 9 of 14 shooting. Just getting great cuts to the basket. People kept finding him. People keep leaving him. He had 2 amazing driving dunks, and I think that kind of got him going as well, too, which obviously got the crowd going. Iguodala to come and give you 20 points off the bench. David West with his fire, Assassin's Creed himself, as they call him on Twitter. He goes out there and he's ready to muck it up a little bit there, and kind of is what turned things around a little bit in that second quarter. Went out there and just got more physical and seemed to want it a little bit more than some of the other Cavaliers the guys did. So when you look at Golden State top to bottom, this is a phenomenal basketball team, and they had their adversity. Remember, Kevin Durant missed some time. Remember, Steph Curry didn't play well to begin the year, and everyone's saying, oh, Durant's taking over, and was that going to be a problem? Questions about Klay Thompson and all that. The steadiest person, I think, the entire season, I might have actually been Draymond Green for the most part, without any, and Durant, obviously, without him being injured. And then you take into the fact that Mike Brown, coaching most of the playoffs, Steve Kerr coming kind of in and out during the season as well. They had their adversity. But nevertheless, they still won 60-plus games and went 16-1 in the NBA playoffs to capture this championship, their second and third in 3 seasons. And that, to me, is really the mark of an amazing basketball team because, again, they didn't do it easily.
Yeah, when I look at this basketball team, the way that the ball just moved, it was almost a question of not if, but when. And, we kept talking about this, that the Cleveland Cavaliers have to figure out a way to defensively at least hold the Golden State Warriors, slow them down somewhat, and they just couldn't do it. And look, I don't blame LeBron James, Tyronn Lue. He said, this is what got us to this point, and we are not going to change for anyone. And maybe for, 2 games, I want to say, they try to run with the most efficiently offensive juggernaut that we've probably seen in recent modern NBA history. Okay. And the realization just came where these guys, they just don't hit those shots as many times as the Golden State Warriors do, that Steph does, that Klay does, And I think another thing as well, too, Shaw, maybe it's a little bit of something that I've seen. It's not so much now arrogance as it really is belief. I used to come down on the Warriors because I believed that a lot of, what cost them their title last year was arrogance. But if I think that you continually do what it is that makes you who you are, I no longer identify that as a level of arrogance, unless you're inflicting it on someone else or unless you're inflicting it on a specific instance or an event. When I look at this Warriors team, they fully believe that every shot that they throw up, they make. And I think the only disappointment they find is not whether or not it goes in. It's whether or not they didn't have the right form. if they don't have that little loop, you know what I'm saying? It doesn't work for them. This Warriors team believes every shot that they throw up, they should make. And that's exactly how they acted tonight. They could have been trepid, they could have been very hesitant. But when Steph Curry goes 10 for 20, an efficient night again by Kevin Durant, 14 of 20, you know, that just tells you that they believed in their shot and they were going to throw up their shots, win or lose. They were going to leave it on the court. And I respect the Warriors for doing that, because last year that was something that you really had to question about them when the Cavaliers put the pressure on them.
No, it's the truth, and they stepped up, and obviously having Durant to kind of anchor and take some of that load off was a key benefactor or beneficiary for the Golden State Warriors throughout the entire series. And like I said, wherever it was, I think in game 2, maybe even 3, where Durant's ability to just be on the floor is so great just for the rest of the basketball team, including the bench guys and some of the supplemental dudes, if you will. And this is a team that they had a lot of angst from last year, maybe more so than Cleveland had for them in the previous season, because Golden State, I don't think in any way, shape, or form showed up Cleveland the following year. You know what I mean? And we've already talked about it, where Cleveland on their Halloween party and all the 3-1 jokes that Golden State had to kind of overcome and things of that nature. That stuff, they hear the talk. They hear your slander, as they say, and they responded in a major way. And at no point in this series were they ever really shook about falling back and not being able to win. Yeah, they got just ransacked and blitzed in game 4 by just a historical performance. But like we said then, that's what it took to beat them. A historical performance.
And then you're asking them to come back and do it again in a couple of nights. And it's interesting when I look at this team, Shaw, that they could have easily conceded to the Cavaliers putting it on them again. I mean, Kyrie Irving was getting off early. LeBron James is practically unstoppable. Tristan Thompson, like I alluded to before, J.R. Smith, he was like 4 for 4 shooting threes up to that point. When they actually had taken the lead against the Golden State Warriors, I just felt like this was going to come down to the Warriors getting into their defensive mode. I think a lot of people, again, they fixate the idea that the Warriors will offensively put themselves in the best position. But this basketball team is prided behind shutting down the teams from getting the easiest shots when they shouldn't have those easy shots. And that's exactly what happened. When the Warriors wanted to go on that 21-9 run, a lot of it was perpetuated by the fact that they actually buckled down and they forced the Cavaliers to take some tough shots. They blocked out and got rebounds. Then they got open in the transition game. And we've been saying this time and time again. The Cleveland Cavaliers, while they are a great offensive team, they are not a great transition defense team. And once the Warriors gets out there in the open court, it's open season. That basket is an ocean to them. They're going to always find themselves somewhere close to the basket. If it's not shooting that transition 3, they're getting in the middle of the lanes with dunks by Iguodala or by Kevin Durant or layups by Steph Curry. It was just, you know what I'm saying? Olay, and that was where the Warriors needed to get back to. And that's exactly what they did. And that's exactly what helped them propel them to taking a commanding lead at halftime, and then eventually letting their perimeter game, letting the ability to get in their half court, their sets, and be able to eke out quality shots while still having a lead. They were able to go shot for shot against the Cavaliers. That's the making of a basketball team that seemed very prepared. And give credit to Steve Kerr. Steve Kerr put these guys in the right mindset to not, it's funny, that timeout in the fourth quarter, when the Cavaliers brought the lead back down to, I think, 8. It was another possession. Steph Curry had the ball, and I'm watching how he was about to dish the ball to Klay Thompson. I almost thought deja vu all over again. And Klay Thompson came, took the ball, and then rather than, it being a turnover, it wound up actually being a quality 3-point shot that wound up putting them back into a double-digit lead again, which I thought was the dagger. Because that could have easily been a 4-point swing to the Cavaliers' favor had Curry turned that ball over.
Well, overall, you look at this Warriors team, right? And some of the things you mentioned earlier on in terms of how this game and how the pace of the game was played. There's some statistical kind of anomalies where, sometimes you're like, all right, well, Cleveland had the numbers in their favor. Let's just go through it really quickly, right? 14 turnovers for Cleveland, 13 for Golden State. So, all right, not terrible there when it comes down to that. The Cavs shot 53% in this game against the Golden State Warriors.
Yep.
Golden State shot 51. You know what I mean? 47 field goals for Cleveland, 46. 14 threes for Golden State, 11 threes for Cleveland. Where the differential in this game really comes about, and it doesn't really seem like it was that big of a deal in a 9-point game overall, was in the free throw battle. And the Cavs only made 15 of 23 to Golden State made 23 of 28, which is like, again, it didn't really seem like there was that big of a disparity, but that is almost a difference in the game there when you look at it from that standpoint. Points in the paint went to Cleveland, 62 to 52. Second chance points went to Cleveland, 20 to 15. Fast break points went to Cleveland, 25 to 18. So it's insane when you look at the outcome of this game. It's just, hey, Durant just wasn't going to let it happen, and Steph Curry wasn't going to let it happen. Those two guys just outdueled LeBron and Kyrie, and that really was a difference in the free throw line.
Well,
numbers bent to Cleveland's way, and that's shocking to
me. And here's the thing that I think is really what won't get talked about. Maybe it will. I don't know, but this is something that stands out to me. While Kevin Durant is the MVP, no question, 39 points, 7 rebounds, 5 assists, steal, 14 of 20 shooting. Steph Curry, 10 of 20, right? 50%. I mean, Steph, 12 of 15 from the free throw line. He went to the free throw line, right? He was up there for 15 times. That, to me, stands out more. He was at the free throw line more than Kevin Durant. In a situation, in a game where you want to minimize a deficit, Steph Curry drove to the basket and got calls. Now, maybe sometime last year after that block shot from LeBron James, that snare, that the memes, he isn't an MVP like type player. He getting punked, all this other kind of stuff. This to me is what defines Steph Curry, because he knows that in order to get back into a basketball game, you got to start forcing the team to foul you. And where nobody else wanted to get to that free throw line, Steph Curry wanted to. And he got there 15 times. And that to me is a telling statement, because in most circumstances, if J.R. Smith is taking Steph Curry or Kyrie Irving is taking Steph Curry, Kyrie and JR are bigger bodies. So how is Steph Curry getting to the paint? How is he getting these? If he's not getting in ones, how is he getting to the free throw line? And that to me is exactly, where the Golden State Warriors found another mechanism to stymie what the Cavaliers were actually doing to put themselves in that position statistically, as you alluded to, where it was leaning their way.
And it's look at it. All I can say for Cleveland at this point right now is, what can you really do? Do you hang your head on this? And that's the question I'd have for you. Do you hang your head now knowing that you played the best basketball you could play and there was just no chance? That's why I don't think you see LeBron and Kyrie, like, those guys weren't crying afterwards. They're like, well, hey, what the hell were we supposed to do? And that is now it comes back to them, getting back to the drawing board and trying to reassess themselves. But when you have a guy like Curry, and he gets going, getting to the free throw line, and he actually missed 3 free throws, which is absurd for him.
Right.
12 of 15, as you alluded to. That just kind of got set the tone for them. And again, it really went awry for Cleveland in that second quarter. And yeah, you're right. JR hit some major threes to kind of keep them in it. LeBron and Kyrie, again, same thing. They were doing their thing to kind of keep them in it, and it never got really too out of hand. I think the Warriors led it by as many as 17. But Cleveland just kept answering back, cutting it to 8, cutting it to 7, cutting it to 6. I think even at one point as well. But they just couldn't get any closer than that. They just didn't have the horses. And despite all the great offensive numbers that they put in this game, the free throw line ended up murdering them. Their lack of getting to the line and not even making as many as Golden State was, and Golden State actually just getting to the line a little bit more than they did.
You're tuned to The Baseline. Callie, Warren Shaw, discussing the hot button topics of the NBA. Golden State Warriors are your NBA champions for 2017, defeating the Cleveland Cavaliers 129-120 and winning the series 4-1. All right, let's go ahead and kind of round things out, Shaw, and then we'll get into our conversation about the Warriors moving forward here, and basically what should be next for them. And then we'll end things off with regards to the Cavaliers and what they'll need to do, because you did pose a very interesting question. What do you do if you're the Cleveland Cavaliers. I mean, you basically left it really all on the floor. When I look at this game, particularly in the series, in general, this comes down to recognizing the talent that the Golden State Warriors truly has on the basketball court. And if you are LeBron James and if you are Kyrie Irving, it's funny because I always keep saying, I'm like, look, Kyrie wanted this, right? It's not like he shot from the situation. He wanted this challenge. He wanted this. I was hoping to make sure that Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and these boys, they weren't too consumed about that machismo factor, so to speak, because of that 3-1, uh, Halloween incident and all the trash talking and all of the kind of nonsense and stuff like that, like you alluded to as well. You're Kyrie Irving. What do you do? If there's something that you're expecting to improve more than anything that you would need to work on in the offseason, given what just happened to you, what do you think it should be?
Playmaking. I don't think Kyrie has.
He did make some very costly turnovers and took up some really unusual shots at critical stretches. I don't know if it would have really made a difference, but it did make you kind of look more at Kyrie Irving and his judgment factor on how he was trying to put his imprint on the game.
Yeah, and let me just be more specific. I mean, he still has 6 assists, and that's great. But we all know a lot of those assists came to LeBron off that 1-3 pick and roll, et cetera, et cetera. And playmaking, yeah, he can get to the basket and make great plays with the left hand, right hand, floaters, up and around people, whatever the case may be. But it really is just being a better overall point guard with the vision to get guys involved on a regular basis. And I think he's got to build a little bit more rapport and chemistry with Kevin Love. As long as Love is going to be there, and all the rest of the teammates that are going to be out there as well too. Driving in addition, and easy drop-off passes for people outside of LeBron. And I think that's where he really needs to build his overall chemistry with some of his teammates on the court outside of LeBron, and making them better as well when he's on the floor.
All right, so let's go ahead and let's talk about the Golden State Warriors. They are the NBA champions, and they've got their work cut out. I find this funny. I still think that the Warriors can make some moves and improve this basketball team. I've been saying that this whole series, they've basically been playing with four people. They've been starting with 4 people on the floor. I mean, Zaza Pachulia tonight was absolutely atrocious.
And stop beating up Zaza. We know he's terrible.
I know that. I know that. But
every game
I do this because I listen. You used to talk about Zaza Pachulia in our fantasy basketball. You had me hyped up about Zaza doing this, Zaza doing that, or whatever the case may be. And I thought you had a bromance thing going with Zaza. You know what I'm saying? But look, as we talk about this Golden State Warriors, I'm gonna let up because Zaza's a champion now, so I'm gonna let up on that. But that being said, if you're the Golden State Warriors, if you're Bob Myers, you know what I'm saying? Where do you think that this basketball team can improve? You got a couple of players right now. I mean, I don't know if whether or not the Warriors are going to look to keep Matt Barnes. They've got some really nice young pieces that can certainly blossom for this basketball team. But I'm just more interested on whether or not you think that they should hit the free agent market. And what's the future for Klay Thompson now that he's a 2-time champion?
Well, that's a great question. Salary-wise.
Oh, but the Zaza question, the Zaza rant wasn't okay.
The Zaza slander has just got to stop. I mean, he's Zaza. What are you going to do? He's not good. But Golden State's in a very unique situation. So we know KD and Steph are quote-unquote free agents. So you got to bring those guys back. Whatever it's going to be, $28, $30 million a piece to keep those guys. So that's $60 million roughly you're paying those 2 guys. Okay, great. Now what are you left with? Iguodala's a free agent. John Livingston's a free agent. Your boy Zaza's a free agent. David West signed a 1-year deal. He's a free agent. McGee's a free agent. Ian Clark is a free agent. Matt Barnes, yeah, he's only there because Kevin Durant got hurt. So you let that ride. They have a lot of holes to fill, and I don't know how much money they're going to have in essence to be able to get her done. And Bob Myers and company, they're going to have a tall order. Now you say, to be on this juggernaut of a team, people will take less money. There's no doubt about that. I mean, hey, David West is over here for 1.5, right? But Deshaun Livingston at 32 years old, I guess, going into next season, Is he going to be cool with taking less than the 5.7 he got this year? And that's what it may need to take. Andre Iguodala, this could be his last big contract. You've won 2 chips, you're a Finals MVP as well as 2. So now, are you willing to say, you know what, I'm good, and I just want to continue to be a role player and take less money than 11.1 he was getting? I don't know. I really don't know how they're going to fill out the rest of this roster. It just seems like, okay, this is the NBA champion, so everybody should come back and they'll figure out the money. They'll pay whatever luxury tax they need to pay. But somebody's got to take a haircut on this, right? Like, and you just don't know who that's going to be or how many people it's going to be. And then, are there enough guys in free agency in the supplemental market that are willing to come in at a bargain price that can do some of the same things that these guys on this roster currently do?
I think the unique aspect about what you're bringing up here, Shaw, is I think the wild card is Steph Curry. I think Steph Curry comes in saying, look, I'm willing to sacrifice, say, this much if we are going to make sure that Clay stays. And I'm willing to bet that might actually kind of translate to Kevin Durant.
Let me pause you right there.
Okay.
So
pause me.
Remember, Curry is already on a bargain deal because he had all those ankle injuries, right? He had all those ankle injuries, so then he's the one who got the short end of the stick, and he got to sign for the El Cheapo 10-point whatever it was, and escalated up to 12.1 this past year. He's not taking a haircut again. He's not faded. He's not taking no fade. I don't think it's KD or anybody.
Wait, Shaw. I'm not talking about whether or not we're saying taking a haircut or pay cut. I don't think it's necessarily that. But
he's going to get an increase. But why would he not ultimately demand the max right now? He's a 2-time MVP, All NBA player, 2-time champion.
How about the Tom Brady effect? How about knowing that what you have right now is a possible dynasty, not destiny, but possible dynasty. And look, I'm not saying treat Steph like you treat Dwayne Wade. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is that this organization might have a better way to show their appreciation, and Steph might have a different mindset about how he sees this basketball team moving forward. I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying that there is that possibility that between him and Kevin Durant, that dynamic about saying what we can do to make this team stay, because we believe that this team is just that damn good that they could win not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4. You know what I'm saying? Like, that to me could actually, be the mindset, because
so give me a number. Give me a number. Where would you think Curry would potentially wind up at? Say he's eligible for
certainly 32. He's going to be more than Dre. And I think that he will be somewhere within a respectable range to Kevin Durant. But, like, where will you see it? I would definitely see it at definitely at 20 plus, no question. But what I'm saying, what would you respectively think that Steph Curry should take it as? He should be the highest paid player, period?
He should get the highest amount of money he can garner based on his contract eligibility. So period, the end. So whatever that is, I don't have the math in front of me, but it's got to be north of 30 million, like 30, maybe 32. Same thing with KD. So
Andre Iguodala will be a lost cause.
Unless he's the one who's willing to take considerably less. So what you're saying is here's how it could work potentially to at least keep Iguodala. Let's say they both take 26, 27, something to that effect. And that leaves you enough for Iguodala to get maybe back in that maybe 8 to 9 range or whatever the case would be. Then you're going to have to go over to keep the other pieces. You know what I mean? You'll have to go over if you want to keep Livingston and things of that nature. But to your point, I think obviously Steph and KD have to be back. No, whatever. We're not even going to play around with that.
Don't say it with so much fervor. Go ahead.
But then it does really become about, okay, Iguodala is a major piece to this roster, especially while they don't have an interior presence in a big. And again, unless they find one or they can get somebody, from overseas. I don't know what they have stashed in their cabinets per se. Or some crazy trade that becomes available to them. They're trading draft picks or whatever, somebody shake loose. But all we know is that Bob Myers and this Warriors team, they're not going to stand pat. They're not going to wait for the rest of the league to catch up to them. You know what I mean? They're going to be very forward thinking in their approach. And then maybe it does. Hey Steph, hey Clay. Hey Kevin. Can we get you guys to take a little less than the supermax, if you will. Kind of like what LeBron, I guess, Bosh and Wade did. You know what I mean? They
Right,
didn't quite take the
I
max,
think
but
to the point that
it's
I was
tough.
making, Shaw. I know it's tough, but to the point that I'm making is that part of this is the reason why I think that this is a little bit different in the circumstances. Remember, LeBron James, Chris Bosh, and Dwayne Wade were free agents, right? So like in a way it was almost pre-planned that for them to make this work, ultimately for this to happen, LeBron James knew that he was not going to stay in Cleveland, right? I think we both can agree that while we believe if you are the best player on the planet, people should come play for you. I don't give a damn where you are. If you are the best player on the planet, you want to win a championship, you go with that guy. But LeBron clearly did not have a good relationship with Gilbert and the Cavs organization. He wanted out. And in order for him to go play somewhere else and it not necessarily be about the money, but be about the players that he wanted to play with, he was going to probably have to sacrifice the money up front, which is fine because he's already getting gazillion dollars from Nike anyway, right? So this is what I'm saying. The circumstance might be a little bit different because now Steph has played with Kevin Durant and he has played with Iguodala, and with these guys, he's won championships. Now, to your point, Shaw, these guys could be just like, hey, I need to get paid. It's all about longevity. I don't know whether or not, I can do what I'm doing for however long because I'm an ankle injury away from something happening. So pay me my money. That could very well happen. But at the expense of losing some quality players, we're clearly not talking about this same Golden State Warriors team because I don't know how you can go out and replace that with anyone out there doing what these guys collectively have done in the last 3 years.
Well, the only thing that, while you were giving your point there, it brought me back to even kind of to a counterpoint again in terms of, you said it yourself, LeBron was the best player in the league and probably still is the best player in the league, and he went to another organization, right? Mm-hmm. But part of that construct to make it work was the fact that they weren't Miami's own free agents. You understand what I'm saying? So them all coming there and taking a max, it was harder to fit under the cap because they didn't own bird rights on Bosh. They didn't own bird rights on LeBron as well. So they all had to take a little less to make the money work. Here, Durant and Curry are already Golden State's own free agents. They're not coming from another team to try to make it work. And Durant, rightly and smartly, signed a 1-and-1 deal, so he's going to opt out so that he can get a bigger percentage of the cap spike that's coming this season. So that's where I'm saying both of these guys, it's really going to be up to Golden State in terms of like, hey, how much of this luxury tax are you willing to pay? And I think it was, the great Bobby Marks was saying at some point it does become an issue when the repeater tax kicks in. So maybe not next year, but the year after that, when they're going over the tax to continue to pay this, they're going to have a payroll of like $150 million. Then that's where they're like, all right, maybe we need to slow things down. And that's when you see, okay, well, do we really need Klay Thompson if we have Patrick McCaw? Can he develop? You know what I mean? That's the issue that we have. I just don't think we're there yet. And I think they're willing to pay whatever they need to pay to keep both those guys and then some.
Whew. Interesting discussions, which I know we will have no problems, sharing and deliberating back and forth throughout the course of this offseason. I mean, look, NBA draft is around the corner too, right? So some interesting times yet to say the least. But for right now, Golden State Warriors can bask in the glory of their championship and the impressive run going 16-1 throughout this NBA playoffs. You're tuned to The Baseline. Cal Lee, Warren Shaw discussing the hot button topics of the NBA. NBA Finals is a wrap. Off-season time. And you know what that means, Shaw. Right? Just about that part of the show. We hate to do it. But if there's only two teams left in this whole thing, man, and one of them has got to go on and get, right? So yeah, it's about that time. Hitch that wagon. Let's talk about that Cleveland Cavaliers basketball team, man. So earlier in our show, we talked about no matter how you slice it, this is probably the best that you were going to get from the role players from the Cleveland Cavaliers. You look at that roster that the Golden State Warriors have, and I think if you replayed this whole thing 4, 5, 6, 7 times, Golden State will probably win 5 of the 7. Whatever. There just wouldn't be a scenario where you could see the Cavaliers pulling this out if you just solely depended on the role players that they had. But with that being said, Shaw, we did see some quality play from the role players. They just did it too little, too late. So what do we do now with this Cleveland Cavaliers team? I was looking at um some of the fervor on Twitter and some of the reports already. Stephen A. Smith from ESPN, he's talking about, LeBron can't do it by himself. I'm like, I'm sorry, did Kyrie Irving not, drop 30? You know what I mean? Like I forget, like Kevin Love dropped like 27. I just don't think that this team is good enough for the Warriors. But if you are looking at this Cavaliers team, Shaw, how much change should really take place to find themselves back into the same position that they were in this past season?
It's funny you mentioned that because I think Ramona Shelburne, also from ESPN, she said, yeah, LeBron is going to have to reassess this team and see what it can help. And then somebody from the Undefeated and kind of quoted her tweet and said, well, who's he going to get? One of the Avengers to help him? Who's out there, who can combat what?
Yeah, I mean, like all of this talk about getting Chris Paul and Carmelo Anthony. I mean, like, that you really think that that's what's going to help this Cavaliers team figure out a way to beat the Golden State Warriors? I mean, ultimately, they're going to need somebody who is really, like, I really feel like LeBron James is more about making his team better. And I think ways from an offensive perspective. They're going to need a Draymond Green type player, man. They need somebody who doesn't need to give you a ton on offense, but really can shoulder the load that LeBron James, I think, has had to endure being that big in that small lineup, to play defense for them, to rebound for them, to do the things that I think that they thought Tristan Thompson was going to do for them. I'm not saying, they should or shouldn't replace Tristan Thompson. That's on them. I really don't see. I've always said that Tristan Thompson has always been an oddity for this basketball team. But somehow, some way, LeBron James has made this man look like all world. He got paid like he was all world. And really, by default, de facto, whatever the case may be, they had to live and die with the consequences. When the Warriors had to play that small lineup, he was like lost in outer space, basically, right? But if you are the Cleveland Cavaliers, you need a Draymond Green-like type player, man, to offload that burden that LeBron James shoulders on the defensive end, because none of these guys are going to give that for you. And if you're going to stick with the same guys that you've got, this team is going to run right back into the same problems that they ran into in this series.
Yeah, I mean, the closest guy, and there's really nobody out there like Draymond in basketball. I mean, he's a very unique Swiss Army knife that Golden State has. The closest thing you could say at an elite level is maybe Paul Millsap, who is a free agent. So can they entertain the conversations on that? A cheaper option, but obviously gives you not a whole lot of offense and definitely no passing at all, is a PJ Tucker type. Those are the types of guys, those kind of rugged defenders that are out there that can maybe help them on that side of the basketball. But it really does boil down to what we were saying a little bit earlier on. It's like, yeah, they need to shore up this bench a little bit. And what happens when you win an NBA championship, and it would be interesting to see if we have the same conversation about the Warriors in a year or two as well, too, is you win, so everything is all good. So they Cavs won last year. A couple people were up for extension. So, hey, JR, come on back. Here's your money. Hey, Tristan, here's your money. Hey, Shump, they got Shump for 2 more years at $21 million over the next 2 years. You think they're regretting that a little bit? I'm sure they are. Channing Frye, it's got 7.4 owed to him next year as well, too. Guys who didn't really do a lot for them in the playoffs, especially in the
How
NBA
much of that, though? How much of that is just them not really not stepping up, and how much of that is Tyronn Lue? How much is that? I think
in the case of the Shump didn't play well. He just didn't play well and didn't deserve to be out there. Frye didn't get really much opportunity to contribute in the finals at all. And hey, that's a Ty Lue decision. It is what it is when it comes to that. But even the buyout guys that they added, and remember Kyle Korver, I mean, did he have an impact? He had some nice moments in the playoffs overall, but was he a difference maker? Not really. Darren Williams, I think, everyone's saying he was a walking corpse. So he's only 32 years old when you think about that. It's shocking to me that Andrew Bogut, who they signed, and obviously he got hurt immediately, he's only 32 years old. I feel like he's fucking 45. You know what I mean? But he's been out there. He's been hurt so many times. So I know Bogut's not really in the picture for them, but there's a possibility they can try to bring him back as a big as well too, because it just didn't really work out since he got injured so quickly. You know what I mean? This team is kind of strapped right now, and they don't have a lot of flexibility with what they're able to do, and it's kind of in the same situation as the Warriors to some degree, where you're like, okay, well, how many people want to come out and just play with LeBron and Kyrie and try to make it work? Because I don't know. And then they still have the conversation that they need to have with their general manager, David Griffin. That's not a resolved situation as we record this podcast. So what happens if he goes? Who do they bring in, and what is their philosophy to try to get things done? Does that person come in now and assess the situation the same way,
And
or does he feel like Kevin Love
I think an interesting thing that people don't really give credit for, Shaw, with regards to Griffin, is he was a really good moderator between Dan Gilbert and LeBron James, or mediator. Excuse me, not moderator, but great mediator. He appeased to LeBron's, obviously his requests, but at the same time, he didn't completely give in. And while at the same time, he clearly had to work with Dan Gilbert in acquiescing to the idea that if this team is going to continue to win the way it's winning and get to finals and keep LeBron happy, that, Gil's got to give up a little bit. And so David Griffin, to me, and like I said, a lot of people don't really give him credit for that, because they just look at the fact that this team has been carried by LeBron James. This organization has been carried by LeBron James over the last decade. I mean, you can make the argument that the Cleveland Cavaliers wouldn't even have Kyrie Irving if LeBron James didn't leave, right? So the reason why we're talking about this Cavaliers team still having opportunities to get to an NBA Finals, because there's still no clear-cut competitor in the Eastern Conference, is because of the fact that David Griffin put the necessary pieces together, held the players he held, moved the players he had to move in order to have them play in 3 straight NBA Finals. With that being said, though, Shaw, LeBron James averaged a triple-double in this series, first time ever. You begin to wonder, when will he start to fall off? I definitely don't think that it's going to happen next year. But then you still have to wonder, are we playing LeBron James the way that he got played in this series? It's getting to that point where we're either going to start talking about the talent stepping up to alleviate that burden from him, or LeBron James really putting himself in a position to command that burden not being on him.
Well, I think it is the former. Guys need to be able to play at a certain level with him, alongside him. And that's going to, fingers are all going to point at Kevin Love, I think, immediately. Some are going to point at Tristan Thompson too, especially for the salary that he's making. Does that salary command, the statistics that he gives you on a regular basis when it comes down to everything? But then it is the other guys. But again, I keep going back to, do they have enough on the bench? And what pieces can they fill in to plug in that? And all the drama that we saw this year, LeBron ends up being kind of right. Although we felt like, okay, they did enough potentially adding a Darren Williams and adding Kyle Korver, well before the trade deadline even getting Derek Williams kind of post whatever after the Heat let him go, but he didn't really get a chance to play much in the playoffs as well too. Dante Jones, again, the corpse of Dante Jones gets added a week before the playoff starts. They just
listen, man, I gotta tell you something, man. Dante Jones yakking and getting called for a technical off the bench. If they figure out a way to bring this boy back for any other reason, I will slap the Cavaliers organization myself. I mean, they're just some dudes that I just feel like just love riding the coattails of success. And before, I used to have like a lot of respect for Dante Jones because he used to be a real tough defender, take no ish type of player, whatever. But this guy's done some really foolish nonsense. Like this dude would have his own clips of Shaq and a fool. Remember that one time where he basically came into the game, got 2 technicals in less than 3 minutes, left, and basically he had to pay the NBA about 3/4 of the salary that he got just coming back for the stretch of games that he played in the regular season. You know what I'm saying? Like things like that, man. I mean, come on, man. Seriously.
I mean, but it's just not enough for Cleveland to get past Golden State. Pretty much 29 other teams therefore 28 other teams, and they're good. But just when it comes to Golden State, they're just other level right now. So I don't know that there's an answer for them out there. And, that's why these general managers get paid the big bucks, and they'll try to get creative, and you'll probably hear some trade rumors, and it will be very interesting to see if Love's name is dangled out there again after pretty much acquitting himself well last season and having a very good regular season this year. Now, again, didn't have a great NBA Finals. So
do you buy, though? Do you fully buy that Kevin Love is is the kind of player that can continue to be better and grow? Or do you think that he's reached his peak with this basketball team, specifically playing next to LeBron James? There's just some players that you look at them and you're like, yeah, man, this is probably as good as it's going to get with this dude. And it's not to say that what he brings to the table isn't necessarily good. It's just not good for what they're trying to do. And it may not be good for the growth and the maturation that he needs to be at to be a basketball player. I mean, we say that with Kevin Durant, right? Like, as much as we would love to see Kevin Durant have won a championship with the Oklahoma City Thunder, you know, and I know it, Shaw, I've said it. I could not see them two winning a championship together. They're in two different they're in two different places in their careers and their approach to the game. And it's always going to come to a head. When it matters the most, it will come to a head. And I just wonder if that's the sentiment that really now takes place when you look at with Kevin Love and LeBron James, because very seldomly in the last 2-3 years that we've seen this dynamic have we seen where it's been the Kevin Love LeBron James show. It's always been really the LeBron James Kyrie Irving show.
And part of that is how Love is as a player, right? We keep saying, we have to understand it, that he can't create a shot for himself. He needs those guys to give him the ball. He's not going to get a rebound and dribble it up the ball up the court himself and then, run pick and roll for himself and be the ball handler. Like, he needs those guys to get him involved. So as long as that is kind of his role, and not as a feature guy, yeah, he's going to struggle, I think, at times. But I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, because they won last year, and he played fine. He played fine. But you don't want to have to go in here and make all these sweeping changes because you can't beat Golden State. They are an impossible team right now. And I don't know if Love is the person that you kind of pinpoint out and say, okay, it's your fault. We need to get rid of you and bring in some other guy.
So here's the thing, Shaw, because I often, and we usually have this conversation and we say this. If you're the Cleveland Cavaliers, are you building to beat the Golden State Warriors? Or are you building to put yourself back in the same position that you're in right now to get to the NBA Finals? Because I will say this much. As long as you do have LeBron James and you have what you're seeing from Kyrie Irving, there's nobody in the Eastern Conference that we can actually see that will have a tandem as lethal as what these guys bring to the table. And that's not even talking about what Kevin Love does, because maybe to some degree, Kevin Love is an absolute overmatch with reference to how he plays against everyone in the Eastern Conference. But you put him out in the Western Conference, and his game may get exposed a little bit, not just by the Golden State Warriors, but there are a few teams that could probably eat Kevin Love up alive, and has to be saved by guys like LeBron James and Kyrie Irving. So with that being said, if you're the Cleveland Cavaliers, you're building to improve the roster so that they maintain getting to the finals, or you're building to this roster is lethal enough to win? Because you're probably talking about, Shaw, that this team may not find what they're looking for immediately now and may have to wait until the following year unless they get quality players either via from the draft or some veteran guys that are willing to take less money to come play for this basketball team that could certainly contribute more than what they've gotten from their depth players already this year.
There's a lot to get to there. I think that, we can't forget that Love started in the Western Conference. Yes, on a bad team, but he was out there dominating in the Western Conference and was being argued as one of the best power forwards in the game before he went to Cleveland. So that part is hard to argue. But when it comes to Cleveland and what they're trying to do, their goal is always to win an NBA championship, point blank period. So yeah, their direct competition is the Golden State Warriors. LeBron is 32 years old. He'll be 33 in December. So you figure he's got another 2, maybe 3 years at kind of an elite level, and every year you feel, okay, he's gonna eventually downgrade just even a little bit. So his window is getting shorter. So you have to continue to surround him with elite level pieces so he can be at elite level to compete with the Golden State Warriors. But how do you go about doing that? And that's an answer to a question that we don't have. We don't know what they're going to do. I think they're going to have to remain kind of status quo based on kind of the salary cap restrictions they have in place. And I don't think anybody's going to be out there trying to help the Cleveland Cavaliers get better in any way, shape, or form. A superstar is not going to just shake loose. Oh, well, give us Tristan Thompson and JR, and we'll, give you XY player, or Paul George, something like that. Like, that's not going to happen for them. So I think for them, it's a matter of kind of, hey, stay as good as you possibly can, and then you don't know. You are a Steph Curry turned ankle away, a Kevin Durant, knee injury or whatever, potentially from going out there beat them. And if you beat them and they're not 100% healthy, well, that's not your problem. You know what I mean? You just need to keep doing what you do and get there and put yourself in the best opportunity to win.
All right. Well, the LeBron James factor, once again, all world renowned, embodies all that's really great about the NBA. He's a once in a generation type player. Unfortunately, he falls short, even though this is his 8th NBA Finals, 7th straight NBA Finals. Only has 3 rings to show for it. But man, I would be remiss if I didn't tell you I'm not betting against him and any team that he plays for that they probably won't find themselves playing one more time in the NBA Finals. So with that being said, for now, though, we have to hitch that wagon. Time for the Cleveland Cavaliers to ride on out in that sunset. In the immortal words of our man Liquid Gold, Velveeta style, they just need to go on and get. Awesome show this week, Shaw. Man, just absolutely remarkable. Look, all jokes aside, yeah, a little bit of the fun was taken out of it when you have 2 superior teams like these. But there's some teams, man, that have definitely showed us some things. There's some players that have showed us some things. We've seen some remarkable highlights, some game facials, some gas faces. It's been an awesome season to break down the NBA with you, brother. And listen, man, the offseason is just obviously right around the corner. So there's no sleep when it comes to talking this NBA stuff. And I look forward for us to getting ourselves ready for the 2017-2018 season, man.
Yeah, the summer is going to be amazing. Got a loaded draft classes we already know about. We're going to be talking about all that. Jump right into Summer League, NBA Award Show, all that stuff. So we have some stuff to kind of keep us going and sustain us throughout the majority of the summer. But as you alluded to, man, yeah, this was a great overall season. I think just to cover, it's always a great season because it's basketball. It's the NBA is what we love. Although the drama wasn't there, as you alluded to as well, it was still an amazing thing to watch and be able to discuss with you, as always, my dude. And I hope all our fans and listeners enjoyed it as well because we love doing this. You know, we're not going to stop and we're going to keep going no matter how bad the games are. We're still going to give. We're
going to find some light to shed for you, no matter how dark it may seem.
100, man, 100. And hey, you know, we got the Big 3 league going on this year. We got the Champions Sports League as well coming through. So a couple of old school NBA guys are going to be getting their swag going on in the summer.
And they're not afraid to talk some smack too. You saw Instagram, Kenyon Martin and Charles Oakley.
Oh yeah.
Oh man, if we could get some NBA players talking the kind of smack these guys are talking, man, I'm telling you, we would have fun all the time.
But for me, us also, you know, as we head to the offseason, it's a great opportunity to kind of look at the game holistically and kind of get some different takes out there. So the summer is when we bring in a lot of great guests and even get some players on as well, too, to kind of come and just talk about different aspects of the game and kind of the culture of the game as well, too. So we'll continue to do all that stuff for you guys. I hope you stay tuned in. But again, as you alluded to, great overall NBA season. Expected outcome, no doubt. But hey, you still got to play the games and watch, and that's what we're here for, NBA Baseline.
Most definitely. So once again, keep us locked. Cal Lee Warrenshaw of the Baseline NBA podcast. We got a lot of things happening, even in the off season. Team No Sleep, yours truly here, giving you the goods, discussing things that are happening in the association. Be sure to check out the Baseline NBA podcast. We got some news that's happening, some really good things rolling around. So check us on the Instagram tip and also on Twitter. Get at my man Shaw at Shaw Sports NBA or get at me at GameFace Lee. The show's Twitter handle at NBA Baseline. Shout out to you, the listeners of the NBA Baseline podcast. Without you, this would not be possible. We love what we do, but we more importantly love doing it for you. So we always appreciate the feedback. We always love the commentary, and we just always love the growing interest in how we discuss the NBA. Keep it going. Keep us live. Keep us popping. And that's what we'll keep it rolling as well, too. You give to us, we give to you. Help us help you break down the NBA like no other duo should. For the Baseline, Cal Lee, Warrenshaw, we appreciate you guys. You guys have an awesome summer, but don't run off too far. We'll still be right here talking that good NBA talk. So we'll catch up with you next time.